Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It is the 8th of April. It's Thursday. It's 2021, and I'm Carey Holzman. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I've got a special build today. This is for a very good friend of mine who I was and still am a fan of his work in the PC industry. His name is Steve Bass. He's been a guest on here in the past. And not lately because everything's been so busy for me, so chaotic. I'm just trying to get caught up with work. And initially, we batted around the idea of having Steve build his own high-end computer because he would enjoy that. But I would have to assist him virtually, remotely, and we would make a video out of it. It's just never going to happen. I mean, it's not. At this point, it's been put off about 10 months since we initially talked about it. And I just said to Steve, I said, look, let me just get it done. I've got the parts here. Let me build it. I'll make a video. I'll ship you the computer. Well, what do you want? Steve wants a high-end computer. And by high-end, I mean he wants a 10th gen i9 processor. He wants 64 gigs of RAM. He wants 2 terabytes of really fast storage. He wants the end-all be-all of computers. And he deserves it. And Steve will join us to continue to review computer-related gadgets, headphones, microphones, flashlights, what have you, in the upcoming weeks and months ahead. But for now, as I'm trying to get myself unburied, I thought, let's get this system built for him and send it over to him, and then he'll have a nice computer to connect with us on those future interview opportunities that I share with him, or that he shares with us. As I mentioned, I started prepping boards off camera because it's just very time consuming. It's very repetitive. You guys you've seen me do this countless times. If not, videos are still up. You can still watch me do it countless times. But essentially, all I've done off camera is install the RAM on the board, the CPU, the Noctua cooler, update the BIOS, install the SSD, install the Samsung Magician software, flash the if the SSD had an update. It's all updated, all that's ready. So all I have to do is install this into the case with a power supply. And then it's just cable management panels and send it off. Steve said he does not need a DVD drive, and that's great, and I won't add one. Tony Wallow, very generous, contributes $49.99. Thank you for that, Tony. Thank you for your continued support. And I hope everybody can see and hear me okay. I have about 4 more systems I need to get done that are already prepped. Is it 4? Wait a minute, hold on, let me check. How many do I have prepped? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 prepped. I got 4 more to prep after that. We still have a couple of these off-lease computers to give away, and I've been shipping a computer every day this week. It's been crazy. So once these builds are all behind me, I'm going to revert the channel back to more reviews and interviews, and then the builds will be less frequent. You know, it's interesting, if you look at the history of the channel, you didn't see any builds for a while. People are like, gosh, you ever going to get back to building? Now people are like, gosh, you ever going to do anything other than building? So everything's constantly in a cycle. And so building won't go away, it just won't be so frequent. And also the variety of the channel will go back to a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little, interview here, a review there, a build here, a repair there. I've invited people, if you have a computer you need repaired, and it's within about 6 years old, and you are willing to mail it to me, unless you're in the Phoenix area. Of course, we could make arrangements for pickup and drop off if you're in the Phoenix area. But I think a lot of people like to see the repair diagnostic and repair procedure. I can't really help you with laptops, but if you have a desktop computer, regardless if it's a pre-built or one that was built yourself, and you're having some kind of a problem or difficulty with it, and you'd like to see a video made on the diagnostic and repair of it, I do that basically completely. Connect me. All right, now I think I'm reconnected. The internet in this secondary studio is still a little spotty, and sometimes it gets off to a little bit of a rough start. I hope that's behind us now, but I apologize. There's a little bit of buffering there, but it's making do with what I have here. In any event, that should be in hopefully won't be occurring again anytime soon. But what I was saying was, for computers that need to be repaired, if you want to send a computer to me, it can't be too old, because then shipping it back and forth would cost more than replacing it with an off-lease computer. That wouldn't make any sense. And laptops have a lot of proprietary components and require a lot more time and labor and can be easily broken unless you're a specialist and do that all the time. So I'm not going to involve myself in that. But if you have a desktop computer within about 6 years old, you know, running Windows 10, and you're having a problem with it, and you'd like, or even if you wanted upgraded, you wanted me to optimize it, whatever. What I was saying, and I don't know where I was cut off, was you just have to get the computer to me. Once I have it, all the labor is free. If there's parts I have laying around, I'm happy to offer them to you. However, for the most part, if you do want more memory or more storage, you would expect to pay the cost for that, or you could even provide it. You know, I'll send you an Amazon link or a Newegg link, and you can order it and have it shipped directly to me. So I'm not selling any parts. I'm not making any money off the parts. I'm not making any money off the labor. But I think a lot of viewers enjoy watching the repair videos, and a lot of the repairs I do here locally, I have several individuals that have requested not to have their computers on video. So you might be under the impression I'm not doing many repairs. That is simply not the case. I can't show you everything, all right? So that's the best I can do to try to accommodate for what the viewers want to see for the channel and what the customers want. So if you want more details, more information, reach out to me using my email address you can find in the About section of my YouTube channel. Planet Cryos contributes $20, says, Carey, I want to thank you again and inform you about the H370 DS3H that you use. The upper M.2 slot is PCIe by 2 and not PCIe by 4, which is the lower M.2 slot. And this is different from the regular H370 for some reason. I do believe I've tested that. Your computer has shipped, and that was looked into. So, and I never believe what the manual says. I always plug the M.2 drive on an unfamiliar board into both sockets to see which one runs faster. You can confirm that when you receive the computer. I believe it is in the by 4. If I'm wrong, that's something you can very easily change out yourself and let me know. In fact, either way, let me know. But I do distinctly recall testing that on that board. So I've worked on so many computers the last 2 weeks, I can't remember anything now. But when it's an unfamiliar board, I generally do not believe the manual. So I will have tested that M.2 in both slots, ran crystal disk mark on it. And that's how I can determine it really quickly, which is which. But yes, I believe what you're saying is true. I can't remember, and I'm sure I would have accommodated for it. Okay, Armando Garcia contributes $5, says, hello, chat. Thanks, Uncle Carey, for sharing your knowledge with us. Business is good on the repair side, and gym clients are starting to come back now, too. Awesome. Well, thanks for the update, Armando. And then there were a couple other contributions here that I have missed. Let's go back. XRod666 contributes $10, says, Carey, do I need to do a fresh install of Windows when I upgrade a motherboard? Maybe. My advice to you is to upgrade your motherboard and then see if you need a fresh install of Windows. It is sometimes a little maddening when people want to know the future. I cannot read the future. Sometimes you do need a new install, sometimes you don't. Depends what boards you have, which board you're going to, and how your Windows is configured. If those three things align, and you'll be fine. If they don't, you'll probably get an error message related to your hard drive controller, and you can avoid that by using a Cronus TrueImage to clone your operating system with Universal Restore. But it's honestly just a lot easier to reinstall Windows, in my opinion, if that happens. But I appreciate when people have a problem. If you ask a question, I'll be very happy to provide you the best answer I can for a problem. If you're anticipating a problem, there's not much I can do to help you. But once you verify you have an actual problem you can describe to me, I can provide you an actual answer. If we want to hypothesize problems, we can hypothesize solutions. It is a complete and utter waste of time because there's so many variables and possibilities I can't possibly cover them all, and I would spend this entire stream just answering your one question about if this, then this, unless that, then do this, but otherwise do that, unless you can do this, but then it depends on that. It just goes back and forth and back and forth, and it's maddening to have that discussion. So please, yes, if you have an actual problem that you want to resolve, please feel free to ask. I will do my best. Theoretical problems, I'm not very good. I'm not very good at answering the future. I don't have a crystal ball. Rick Lakes contributes $10. Thank you, Rick, as always, for your generosity. And Mike Yazzie with a $20 contribution. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the contribution. And hello to all my friends in blue. Thanks for joining me today. Joining me tomorrow, Mitch Morrison will be here, and we're going to do the mini attack helicopter build. So I've got that motherboard already prepped and ready to go, and we'll have a fun time with Mitch the Man Morrison. 1 o'clock starting time, Arizona. You can pretty well set the clock when people want to know, when are you going to go live? Generally speaking, I go live whenever time permits. Now, I am trying to at least commit to going live, no matter what, every Friday at 1 o'clock Arizona time, consistently. Now, there still may be exceptions to that, but that is what I'm going to try and stick to. If that goes well, I'll add another permanent day of the week and time, and then eventually we'll have the week schedule filled out. I won't be able to go live every day because there's a lot of administrative work. I got to go to a dentist, I got to go to a doctor, I got to take the car to an oil change, I got to go to FedEx and ship computers, I got to pick up parts, I got to take care of this, I got to take care of that. So there will be at least one day a week where I do not broadcast so that I can sort of have an errand day. And then there may be occasions where errand day has to be on Friday, but that won't be normal. So let's get to work. As I mentioned, the motherboard here we're using here, this is an ASUS TUF or TUF Gaming. It's a Z490 Plus, which includes Wi-Fi on the back of it. Now, this is what's interesting to me. A lot of times through history, people always joke about how you buy something related to a computer and it goes obsolete or depreciates really quickly right after you buy it. This is becoming less and less true over the last 4 years. The parts that you see before you, if you add up the cost of these parts, is nearly 33% higher than what I paid for these parts months ago. For example, this motherboard I paid $168 for on Amazon. Today, this motherboard is $299.99. The solid state drive is a Samsung Evo Plus 2 terabyte drive. I paid $249.99 for this drive today at Amazon, and for the last 2 months on Amazon, that drive has been a solid $319.99. Same drive, same exact thing. Just those two parts, you're already seeing a difference of over $200. It's the exact same parts, it's just about when you buy them. This cooler, the Noctua cooler, I've been using these because they're easy to install and it's easy for me to get my hands into that CPU power connector on a 200R. The Scythe Mugen 5 is just too big and I have to change the order in which I install. This cooler is about $30 more. The Scythe Mugen 5 is about $50. The Noctua U12S here in black is about $80, but Noctua is releasing a Redux version, meaning the cheap bargain version of this exact cooler, except it's silver instead of black and the fan is gray. It's one of the ugliest coolers I have ever seen, but it will sell for $50. I don't think they're available until May, until next month, but I've ordered one so I can put it side by side on the same system against a Mugen 5. Because the Mugen 5, I think, is still a better deal. The Mugen 5 is a bigger heatsink. Generally, the larger the heatsink is, the better your cooling is going to be, generally. The Mugen 5 also includes a screwdriver, and while the Noctua cooler here includes this weird, cheap blister maker screwdriver, the cheap one doesn't, which is good riddance as far as I'm concerned. So cooler for cooler, dollar for dollar, which one's better? Forget about how they look. They're both kind of ugly. So that'll be upcoming probably in May, and I'll run that comparison. Hey, there's Michael Dane with a $50 contribution. He says, thanks for your videos, Carey. Problems I have, your video helps me out with the problems I have, your video helps me out with my problems. Well, hopefully I'm not introducing any new problems. Thank you so much, Michael. Thanks for your contribution and support. And of course, everybody knows Michael Dane. He's the man. All right, and there's Ben Lard says, hello from Scotland. Welcome in, everybody. I see my friend Ron Hillier is in the chat room. Welcome in. And all my friends in blue. Thank you guys so much for joining me this Thursday afternoon. And so what I've done off camera, as I mentioned, the motherboard's prepped, ready to be installed. I pulled the side panels off, and that's pretty much all I've done. You guys keep seeing me take a power supply out when I test systems on the bench. I don't like to use the same power supply over and over after I've used it a few times. I like to, put it into a system and sell it because it's been thoroughly tested. I know it works well. And so you're going to recognize the power supply I keep down here. This is a 550 watt EVGA power supply. This thing had a 2-year warranty whenever I bought it, right? The warranty starts the day of your invoice, not the day you took it out of the box and started using it. But I really haven't seen any bad EVGA power supplies, regardless of age, in a very long time. So I'm very confident to sell this and to pair it up with this system. We're using onboard graphics here. Steve is not a gamer. He just wants something to be simple, quiet. And of course, because I am building it and giving it to him in exchange for him joining me on camera, we want to keep the noise levels down. I want to keep the expense level down, but I also don't want to give him anything that he's going to need upgraded anytime soon, or that will, need repair, because he's several hundred miles away. And so doing that kind of repair remotely would be very difficult, or it's a long 6-hour drive each way to help him. Okay, so let's get the power supply installed. Come around here and fan facing down. You've seen this a million times probably. We'll just set it down, put it underneath the tab, and then slide it back. We've got the box of hardware that comes with the case right here, and then I need to put some screws in the back of the power supply to secure it. If I can just find what I did with the screws. Found them. Of course, the computer case comes with screws we could use, but the power supply also came with screws. And when given the option, I always prefer to use the power supply screws, the screws that come with the power supply. That's what I'm trying to say. So we'll just get these started. Good enough for now. I'll tighten those down a little bit more before I ship it, just because it's being shipped. Power supply is one of the heavier components, and those screws are relatively shallow. And I don't want them to vibrate loose in shipping and then have a power supply go bouncing around inside of the case and destroying everything. So I generally will tighten those up manually. But for now, just to keep everything moving, that's good enough. I'm also not going to hook up the front fan because there's no graphics card to cool down. There's no point in having the front fan. We'll only hook up the rear fan, and that way the front fan will be like a spare fan. The first part likely to fail on any computer is a fan. And if this were to have a fan failure, it starts to vibrate, make noise, it's going to be very annoying, especially if Steve is joining me on camera and I'm going to hear that in the background. And Steve will be very easily able to remove this front fan and move it to the back. And there won't be any parts or labor involved because it's like driving around a car with a spare tire. If I was adding a graphics card to this computer, then I would definitely hook up that front fan, and you'll see that's a consistent thing I do in all my builds. Been doing it for years and years and years and years and years. People are heat obsessed, and it's just a level of enthusiasm that has very little to do with reality. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move the documentation and the spare screws here, and I'm going to take the I/O shield out of the box, which should be in here. guess I'm going to have to step around to do this. Now you'll notice when I carry the motherboard, and the reason why I don't wear an anti-static strap, is there's nothing for me to static shock. I'm holding a heat sink. You can static shock this heat sink all day. You can rub your feet on carpet and poke at it and zap yourself. It's not going to hurt the motherboard at all. So if you handle parts properly, then it's not a concern you'll have. So as far as an I/O shield, ASUS gives us a nice black I/O shield that's going to match the case, and it's got the foil backing, so we don't have to worry about those ground straps getting trapped underneath the I/O ports on the back of the board that you've seen me struggle with on many of the less expensive gigabyte boards. The H370 series, H365 series have these very cheap I/O shields. It's not that big of a deal because you just pretty much deal with it once. You never have to deal with it again. But it's nice if you never have to deal with it once. So, just saying. See, oh, Steve Bass is in the house. Hey, Steve, good to see you, my friend. I hope this computer will meet with your demanding approval. Steve is well, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this. If there's a design flaw, he's generally not too forgiving about it, which is good because neither am I. So hopefully this will exceed, not just meet, but exceed his expectations. If not, I will offer him a full refund. So Steve Bass joins us there in the chat. A lot of good friends here in the chat room today. It's a good day for a live broadcast. Got a nice turnout. Looks like we got about 423 people watching live right now. Thanks you guys so much for tuning in, and hopefully we might learn a little something and laugh a little along the way with me or at me, as long as we're laughing. Snapping this I/O shield in is always a good time. There it goes. That's a nice tight fit. I like the way it looks. It's clean, matches the case. It's great. Let's go ahead and lay this flat so we can set the motherboard in and do what I call a dry fit or a test fit. What I'm looking for is to make sure all the standoffs that are in the bottom of the motherboard tray here are lined up with all of the mounting holes on this motherboard. So I'll just set the board in. And you're not going to get much of a view on this point of the build because it would require an overhead camera as well as an overhead light. And it would help if I actually rotate the motherboard in the right direction. You didn't see that. Cut. Edit that out. Let's see. Yeah, that one's good. Those two are good. Those two are good. And those two are good. Unlike Gigabyte, who likes to put that extra mounting hole on their boards where you always see me grab the plastic standoff, ASUS, MSI, and ASRock do not do that. What that means is the way Corsair sells this 200R with the motherboard standoffs already installed, they're already all there and in the right locations. No modification or change needs to take place. Makes your build just a little less complicated, a little easier. So all I have to do now is just align these ports, again, with the I/O shield not having those annoying grounding straps. It's just a foil back. So that also, there's an expression I like to use called death by 1,000 paper cuts. And it's where you're dealing with little needling problems. And you go, well, that's not a big deal, and 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 that's not a big deal. But added up, it kind of is a big deal. So these little tiny details where there's no extra mounting hole in a wrong position or in a non-industry standard position, where the case manufacturer has pre-installed all the standoffs in the proper locations for a standard ATX motherboard, where the I/O shield doesn't have grounding straps that can be folded up against and blocking your I/O ports during the installation of the board. All of that also adds up to a much more pleasant building experience, a faster building experience, and ultimately your likelihood of succeeding and not getting frustrated without dealing with all of those little paper cuts. Hey, it's just a paper cut, you know? What's the big deal? What's the big deal about a paper cut? I don't know, let me give you about 1,000 of them and see if it becomes a big deal. How many will it take? You know, say 1,000 is an exaggeration, but how many would it take? And sometimes the paper cuts are the worst ones. Sometimes I'd rather actually have a cut, a deep cut, than a paper cut. Those seem to heal faster and are less irritated. But I'm going to go ahead and slide the board in here. And there's center post on the motherboard standoff in the middle is actually holding the board in position. It seats the board for us. So now I can put the screws in to secure the board into position. And once again, when I get an overhead camera in position here, I'll be able to film this, but I have lots of other videos here on the channel. This is the same as every other build I've done in the last 13 years. Planet Cryos again with another contribution, $10. He says, I just took apart an old PC of a family member's. They had a Pentium A805025 SX969. It's from 1995 and 75 megahertz, and it actually booted into Windows 98. Yeah, well, I guess that's a quality build. It still works. It doesn't do much, I suppose, for today's needs and resource-hungry things. Antivirus has become so complex to protect you that a system like that wouldn't have enough power to even run the antivirus, let alone the operating system. I hope one day this computer can be laughed at about, this thing's only a 10850K, it's all the way from 2021. But you know what? It booted right into Windows 10, ha ha ha. I think that's a great compliment for a quality of a build, that it has outlasted its usefulness but still works. It's starting to sound a lot like me. Anyway, all right. In this box, they've got some nylon zip ties, and as I mentioned, the screws. You can have that. And I want the coarse threaded screws. To see the threads, I need to pull out my glasses. I got my glasses and I got my shoes, and now I can see things. I can see little things now. Look it. I think I see atoms and quarks. No. Just a rock. These are the short, coarse threaded screws. I use these on the Corsair 200R to mount the motherboard into the case. Not all cases use the same screw, and it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. Sometimes it varies from the same manufacturer from case to case model. So they're not always interchangeable. So we try and keep everything together for that reason. Getting back to assembly. And I think we've got 8 screws that go in. There's 9 mounting points, 9 mounting holes, but that center mounting pole is a post, as I mentioned, that's holding the board into position. If it didn't do that, this job would be much harder. I've worked with cases that don't have those. In fact, we just did one the other day that didn't have the center mounting post, and it just makes the alignment of the board a little trickier. So this is helpful. Again, 1,000 paper cuts, folks. Little details like that, when you add up enough of them, it can make a complete difference in whether or not you have a positive experience, if you're a first-time builder, or whether or not you suffer a lot of frustration because they made things more difficult than they needed to be. And I have 2 more screws to put in. Bear with me here for just a moment. There it is. Now on this build, it does have the additional 4-pin CPU power connector. That's for overclocking. And since Steve will not be overclocking this computer, I don't have to spend $100 more on the power supply to get that extra connector. The motherboard boots fine just using the 8-pin CPU EPS power connector. It doesn't need the additional 4 unless you are overclocking. And we wouldn't want that cooler on there if we were going to overclock. In fact, overclocking doesn't really return much benefit these days. You want to talk to me in the cellar on 300 days, you know, overclocking, I would very much boast and encourage it. But these days, there's very little return on it. It's just a hobbyist activity for people with nothing else better to do. And hey, keeps you out of trouble, knock yourself out. Difficult to maintain a business with that attitude, but hey, don't let me get in your way. You're not hurting anybody. Knock yourself, like I said, knock yourself out. Enjoy your 7% increase, your 15% increase when your system runs unstable and hot and eats up electricity like, you know, future generations won't have any power because you overclock. All right, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but it's just the returns on the investment are just not worth it, in my opinion. And certainly not in the opinion of running a profitable business. Not my business anyway. Now, there are people that overclock professionally, but those people finding work, you know, that work is hard to come by, and those computers are going to be very difficult to support. And those computers are likewise going to be very expensive because of the crazy amount of testing that has to be done before they can be shipped to ensure the overclock is stable and the machine won't overheat. If you want to be a bespoke specialty custom builder, you could certainly do it. But like I said, finding the work is going to be a challenge to find people with that kind of money. It's mostly, overclocking is mostly something enthusiasts do, more so than professionals. And the things you learn in overclocking are not very beneficial. As a career as a technician, that knowledge isn't really going to help you. At least that's been my experience. Had my share of that, but I won't tell you not to do it. I'll simply ask that you not get me involved in it. Let's see. I need the 8-pin power cable. As I mentioned, this Noctua cooler allows enough room for me to get my hand in here where the scythe doesn't. And so I would have to have put this 8-pin power cable on before putting the heatsink on with the Scythe Mugen 5 cooler because of the size of the cooler. So I'm really liking this Noctua cooler, even though it's $30 more and it's a bit smaller. It seems to cool really, really well. I think on the Prime 95 test, I never broke 67 degrees Celsius after 21 minutes of the test. So it's nice and chill. And when you're dropping this kind of money on a rig, not spending $30 on a better cooler, and better being, you know, the color is better, the ability to work on the machine without having to take the cooler off is better. That's how I'm defining better. That's worth $30 to me. So let me see if I can plug that, where's that 8-pin? Okay, this is the 8-pin connector. And we're gonna take this 8-pin connector and we are gonna run it. Gonna untangle everything here. We'll run it right out there. And then that's gonna go way up in this corner, and we'll just push it right on through. Like so. And then that's coming in to this side. And I should be able to easily grab this. Where did I put it? That's up here. I should be easily able to grab this cable, pull the slack through, because I'm going to need a lot of it to turn this cable around towards the board, clips facing the outside edge of the board, and now I'm not even looking, I'm just feeling for it. Sometimes you can use the holes through the top of the case if you need to see. I almost sometimes feel like my eyes lie to me. So sometimes there's things you can feel versus things you can see. And it kind of depends on the power supply, the way the connector's designed, the motherboard, and the case. There it goes. So again, I can just kind of feel it. And when you're describing how to do something that requires feel, I haven't quite learned how to teach that yet. I had a friend of mine who does very, very well at casinos. And I said, you've got to explain to me how you know when to walk away from a machine. So he takes me with him and we go to the casino and he's like, all right, so you see I'm doing this and da-da-da, and you see this is not paying off, so I'm gonna go over to that machine. You see the total and you see the number of the last payout or whatever it is, and he's like, this is the one I want. And it was just like, what he was basically telling me by the end of the night is he feels it. I said, I can't learn this. I can't. Everything you describe to me isn't scientific. You're going off of, you're measuring the machine's behavior, and then you're associating the likelihood of that machine paying you based on the behavior that you're interpreting. And it doesn't make any sense to me. Like how you're coming to that conclusion is not logical, it's emotional. And sure enough, he went in there with $20, he left with $300. I was like, well, I mean, I know you're not a liar because you've just shown me, but it's not something you can teach. It's like riding a bicycle. You sort of have to get on the bicycle and figure it out. Nobody can really explain it to you. At least not to a point where you could just get on the bike and immediately start riding. They can kind of give you an idea, but at the end of the day, until you're on the bike and riding it, you really won't have any concept of the idea of what it really means. And you'll be very hard pressed to explain it to somebody else. The same goes with building a computer. There's a great sense of satisfaction that comes from building your own computer, and it's something I cannot describe, but everybody in the chat who's built a computer will tell you. They're part of a special club. They know what that feels like, and they want to do it again and again and again, but it's expensive. But it's impossible for me to describe to you that feeling of accomplishment. And there's one thing I know about human beings. It's that universally we like to feel fulfilled. Fulfillment leads to happiness and joy. And a life without fulfillment is a life of depression. And while there are other reasons for depression, fulfillment is something that I think is a good preventative measure or preventive measure against depression. And it's also something you do, in the case of building a computer, it's productive. And when you're done, instead of like a hobby of putting a puzzle together, what do you do with a puzzle once you put it together? You've got a machine you can rely on and use it for communicating with family, for work, for gaming, and you built it with your own two hands, and it'll be the best computer you've ever used in your life. It'll be the most reliable, it'll be the quietest, it'll be the fastest computer you've ever had, and you'll have the personal pride of knowing you built that with your own two hands. And if there is a problem, you will not hesitate to open it up and fix it. You won't feel any intimidation whatsoever. And those of us who have built our own computers, despite the intimidation or the mind trying to talk us out of it, those who do it anyway, they know. They know. If you don't believe me, ask anybody in the chat room who's done it. Universally, nobody regrets it. Even if you have a problem after your build, that's where learning occurs. That is not to be something to fear. That's something to look forward to. This is an opportunity to learn something. If you put your computer together and it doesn't turn on the first time, I'm jealous, because you're getting an opportunity now. If you turn it on and it works right away, all you did is confirm what you thought you knew. You didn't learn anything. You'll still have a great sense of fulfillment, but that sense of fulfillment is nothing compared to the panic and anxiety that sets in when your investment won't start up and you think, oh no, there's a lot of money sitting in this. It's not, did I break it? Did I ruin it? What did I do? And it turns out you just didn't push a cable all the way on, or, something silly. And then your fulfillment is like 10 times greater. It's, yeah, that's a great feeling. And I guarantee whatever that problem is, you'll double check and triple check every single time you build a computer to ensure that never happens again. And you'll never gain that experience without having the experience. So it's interesting to me that I show people how to build computers here on the channel. It's never intended to be an advertisement for my business. And yet people reach out to me and say, can you build a computer for me? And they have their reasons, you know, and I'm happy to help people. But I'm telling you, you're really robbing yourself of a wonderful opportunity. I'm going to hook up these front port umbilical cables, and that is our hard drive LED, which goes on these bottom two sets of pins. Our power LED, which goes just above the power LED. The power LED goes just above the hard drive LED cable. And the cable has a positive and a negative side. The positive side always goes to the left. Unfortunately, when you're working inside of a case, it is going to be dark, and especially those of us that are a bit older or aren't blessed with the best of vision, we're dealing with some small parts in a dark area. So a flashlight and some magnifying glasses can make this job a lot easier. I didn't need these glasses when I was younger. And I have resisted them as much as possible. But you can see how much faster I can work when I do this kind of detail work with them on. Everything happens a lot quicker once I set aside my pride and just accept the fact that I'm getting older. He said he's getting older. What'd he say? He said he likes Fox Mulder. He's watching X-Files. Yeah, that's what he said. This is our front port audio cable. This connects the headphone and microphone jack up at the front of the case. That's usually connected somewhere in this lower left quadrant of most motherboards, right down, if I can turn this, right down in this area on most motherboards. We're not using any of these cables. These are all extra. These will be zip tied, and then there's holes on the bottom of the case, which I will run a zip tie through those holes, and this will be nice and neat and bundled down. There's not a modular power supply. This is not, rather, a modular power supply. So I don't have to worry about the customer years ahead of time. And I go, oh, well, we'll just get your modular cables. Well, I don't have those. Well, yeah, I gave them to you in the motherboard box. Remember, I gave you the motherboard box. All the spare parts and everything go in the empty motherboard box. I don't know where that is. Well, I guess we can go on Amazon these days and order power cables for modular power supplies, but it sucks. So I much prefer, when I'm building computers for clients, to not sell them modular power supplies because they almost always lose the cables. And so I don't know that. I come out on site to do a repair or to upgrade something, and I need a cable, and I go, just give me the box. And they look at me blankly. What box? So then I have to reschedule that customer and make another appointment and make another service call once the part has been ordered and then arrives, and then we can repeat everything all over again. And it all could have been done during one visit, and I could have moved on to help the next customer. So because I'm self-employed and I'm my only employee, it's frustrating for me to have to make 2 trips for something that should only take 1 trip, and to postpone something for several days that could have taken 20 minutes. John Doe says, I wish I was as old as Carey. Well, just wait. That's it. We've built the computer. It's done. We're literally finished. I have to just turn it on. Is that one of the fastest builds you've ever seen me do? We're 45 minutes in and I'm still chatty. I haven't talked any less than I normally do, but I got a lot of work done quicker because of the pre-prepping of the motherboard. Let's give it power. Power supply is in the off position. Let's give it video. So we'll use an HDMI cable that I conveniently have been stepping on. And we'll plug that in. It's going to go right up there. We need a keyboard and a mouse. I've got those right here. Now these aren't keyboards and mice that I sell to customers. These are small, so they don't take up a lot of bench room. If you're a working technician, your bench is, think of it like a surgeon. It's like a gurney. And I don't want all of my tools around my patient. It's sloppy, it's unprofessional, and things can get damaged and knocked off. So I try to keep a minimal amount of things on my workbench. So I use a very small keyboard and mouse, and these are both tied together with one dongle, so I can only lose one dongle instead of two, or worry about which one goes to the keyboard, which one goes to the mouse. This is for testing. And I'm going to plug the dongle into the front USB port so I can test to make sure that those are hooked up and working properly. If I turn this around, maybe like that, and then we'll put you here on what I call camera 2, which is the HDMI input number 2 on my capture card. You will see the output of this computer, so I will take camera 1 that you're looking at me at, and I'll put myself, oh, I don't know, right about there, maybe right there, like that, and then I'll turn on camera 2, which says no signal. That's because this does not have a signal in it, because it's not turned on. That's what no signal means. It means there's no signal running through the cable. But when I turn it on, then it'll push a signal through the cable and result in a picture. So let's see if that happens. We'll switch the power supply to the on position. I'll hit the power button. That's the reset button. Let me try the power button. Okay, power light has come on. Fans are spinning. The rear case fan and the CPU fan are spinning. And in just a minute, we should get the BIOS screen pop up, and then it should boot into Windows 10. It is dead silent. I can't even hear this thing at all. Now, when we are doing our first boot, do give it a minute. Make sure everything's plugged in. It seems to be, I'm really impatient. Boot. Did I push the cable all the way in? Sometimes I don't do that. There it goes. I didn't have the cable pushed all the way in. So we're already at the desktop. I want a do-over on that. So I'm going to restart the computer. You guys can get an idea of just how fast this computer is. Let me go back over to full screen on my side. It won't be any different for you, but on my side I can actually see it now. Ah, there's the mouse. Let's do a restart. Let's watch how fast this restarts. It's got something that was still running at startup. I'm not worried about that. And I was going to click to restart anyway, but it beat me to it. And there's the screen I was looking for. Now watch our boot time here. It says Steve. I see that for Steve Bass. You'll see the icons down on the system tray propagating. You'll see the Intel driver updater tool. Oh, I don't have it connected to the internet. That's not going to work, Carey. But this is going to keep Steve's Intel drivers, the Intel video, Intel networking card, Intel chipsets will all be auto-updated, or they'll at least alert him when there's an update, and it's coming from an official source. And I just want to make sure we turn on the antivirus, make sure that's working. We also have the Samsung Magician software and NVMe driver from Samsung installed to show the drive details of the 2 terabyte Samsung 970 EVO SSD. And you can see there's no updates available. Everything is current. The firmware is current, and the Samsung Magician software is current. If we right click on this PC and go to Properties, we can take a look at the specifications of the machine. You can see we're running an Intel Core i9 10850K CPU running at 3.6 gigahertz. You can also verify that we have 64 gigs of RAM. It says 63.8 is available because the 0.2 is being used by the onboard graphics card. Graphics cards need RAM. A discrete graphics card has its own RAM, but since this graphics card is built into the CPU, it borrows or shares or steals RAM from your system. Most people won't need 64 gigs. Most people don't even need 32, to be honest. 16 is probably plenty, but this is Steve Bass. And if Steve says he wants 64, then you give Steve 64. What else you want to know? There's built-in Wi-Fi on the board, although Steve doesn't need it. It's there if he ever wants to use it. The antennas are in the motherboard box if he wants to hook that up. All the drivers are updated, the Intel drivers. The Windows 10 is activated. It's updated. Everything's been optimized and tuned to Uncle Carey's level of optimization that I do for all of my clients. The system is dead silent. It's relatively lightweight as well. I would say when I ship this, it'll probably be about 37 pounds. And all I have to do at this point is make the cables look pretty. I'm going to get the nylon zip ties out, cable it up, and it'll go off to Steve. I won't go out to Steve tomorrow. Probably on Monday it'll go out to Steve, and then hopefully he'll get it like Wednesday or Thursday. Okay? Okay. Any questions? Steve says, geez, I can't wait. I told Steve it'd probably be about 3 weeks, but that means I've bumped him up, basically. The reason I'm constantly shifting and adapting to other people that I have to count on in order to complete work. And if somebody is postponing me or somebody is stalling me, I can't sit around and wait for them. So now they're gonna come back when they're ready, and then they're gonna have to wait because they made me wait. And now I've moved on. And so until I've finished with whatever I moved on to, I'll make another attempt to help them. I've got a couple of machines I want to build to give away to some frequent and common contributors here, but I don't have any cases to put them in. And I reached out to my friends over at Silverstone and asked if they had any cases they'd like to send, and they said they'd be happy to participate. So now I'm stalling until I get those cases from Silverstone. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions about this build, or Steve, if you have any questions or concerns, I'm looking at the chat right now and I'm happy to address them. I'm going to go full screen. I'll leave this computer on and I'm going to go ahead and go full screen. There I am. Only question is when you're going to ship. I think Monday, Steve. I think I'll ship it Monday. Mitch will be coming over tomorrow to do a build. And from the time I wake up, get showered, get everything prepped for our video, Mitch will probably be here around 11:30 in the morning. We're going to continue to prep and get ready to start filming at 1. We should be done around 5, and then we're going to go grab a bite to eat together. And then after that, I will probably, FedEx will be closed, and I will probably try to unwind for my Friday and Saturday. Sunday, I'll do more work, probably off camera. Monday, then, I can start my day by going to FedEx, and over the weekend, I'll have this cable managed and put it in the box and have the address label printed. So I just have to go into FedEx and hand it to them, and they type it up and give me a receipt. I will scan that receipt, Steve, and I will mail you a copy of it, and that will have your tracking information along with your estimated delivery. It will require a signature. They're not going to just leave it at the porch because it's too valuable, and I think you're going to be very, very happy with the build. And speaking of Mitch, that son of a Mitch is right in the Mitchin house. Welcome in, you Mitchy Mitch. Mitch, I'm just going to keep saying Mitch a lot. Who else we got in the house? Rockin' Rob, welcome in, Rockin' Rob. Luke Greenia. Luke has been a constant contributor here, and he seems like such a kind, generous person. He lives in Vermont. He sends me like maple syrup and Vermont associated goodies, and he's like, hey, I sent you my standard $20, I sent it via PayPal. And, I've got these spare systems that I'm going to build that are actually pretty good systems, but I'm not comfortable selling them. And I thought, what better way but to give back to the people who give to me? So rather than just pick random people in the audience who might just show up for a free computer, who might just want to resell it, to find those genuine people who would see the value of what I do and cherish my gift to them makes me feel really good. And Luke reached out And it's amazing the reluctance I get from people. There's some kind of weird pride about accepting a gift. But you have to understand, if you accept my gift, it makes me feel like I'm the one getting the gift. It doesn't make me feel like I'm giving to somebody who is desperate or who is, what's the word I want to say? Somebody who can't fend for themselves. Please don't have that attitude. Please don't. If somebody's offering you something and you can genuinely use it, don't let your pride get in the way. Just say yes, please, and thank you. And it makes the giver feel amazing. You know, I bet you there's another person in this chat room who knows exactly what I'm talking about, because he's given away 52 computers in his local community. His name is Michael Dane. Why do you think a guy would, or anybody, would give away 52 computers? Not in one fall swoop. It's like, and he's not just ordering computers and giving, he's building them, configuring them in many cases, and then handing them off. And not just to internet strangers, he's handing them off to people that he knows that are in need in his community. Why do you think he keeps doing that? Because when people appreciate your gift, being the giver feels better than being the receiver. And I know that's exactly why Michael Dane does that. It's a very selfish thing he does, giving those computers away. Speaking of which, John Jack Wilson, another frequent generous contributor here, he says he's contributed $50. Thank you very much, Jack. He says, I finally have had a chance to watch a live show. It's good to see you again, my friend. You know, Jack was in a situation a while back where when the pandemic hit, I think some friends of his, some members of the community were having an issue with getting the kids enough computers where they could learn virtually, remotely. And I think there were like 2 kids and 1 computer. And he said, hey, you know, they don't need anything fancy. And I said, you know, you're a frequent contributor. What can I do for you? He goes, well, you know, if you have one of those off-lease computers, I could use one. I feel terrible about asking. Don't feel terrible about asking. That's what they're for. This is exactly why I have them. So I sent it off to Jack, and he handed it off to the family, and their children were then able to each have their own computer to learn remotely. And, you know, a very selfless thing for Jack to ask on their behalf and to provide it on their behalf. He was kind of the middleman. And it makes me feel good knowing that it's actually going to somebody who's not just greedy, right? Somebody, when I offer a computer, I get a lot of greedy people. Or I get people who need it, but they don't want to ask for it because they have too much pride. So in the middle, there are people that can genuinely benefit from having the machine and have a really great sense of gratitude. And I can't tell you what that feels like. It's just an amazing feeling. And I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky that I have this community that enables me to do that. It's your gifts that I'm just turning around and regifting, honestly. But it's not fruitcake, you know, it's actually something people want. Frankie B, and here we go again, another very generous contributor with a $100 contribution. Frankie, thank you, that is so kind. If there's anything I can do for you, Frankie, please, you know how to reach me. Tony Wallow with another very generous contribution. Tony, thank you so much, $99.99, that's very generous. Again, Tony, if there's anything more I can do, I've sent Tony 2 computers over the last couple of years, and I know when I sent Tony that X99 system that came from John Yasuda, it was a broken system, and I did some warranty work on it, and then I didn't want it. And I said, hey, Tony, do you want it? And I knew the value of that system, if I sold it, was probably, you know, $800 maybe more. And I thought, the way Tony gives over time, Tony is going to pay for this computer. And Tony is more than paid for it. So again, Tony, if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to ask. Please, guys, don't feel like you're a charity case, or gosh, I hate that when I see that, when the pride gets in the way of the gift. I love to give to people who have gratitude for the gift, instead of people who feel entitled to it. So, and again, it's that generosity from a very small percentage of viewers that is making all of this possible. It's sure as hell ain't what YouTube's paying me. All right, I'll tell you that right now. Brian Loss, look at this. What a day. $99.99. He says, I can't not donate when I see all the other generosity. Brian, that's amazing. And again, the folks that are frequent contributors or generous contributors, I want to return your love. So if there's anything that I can do for you, I will prioritize your needs above those of just random internet strangers that reach out to me. And I try to return kindness with twice as much kindness. And I also tend to return hate with twice as much hate. So you get what you give. And if there's anything I can do for you, I think Brian's got my email. If not, we'll make sure that you have it. You guys are amazing. Let's talk about another way people contribute here. Catherine Anna Hauserman in the chat room will help you if you're like, okay, Carey, you've convinced me I want to have this experience of building my own computer, but I can't get the parts that you show, or I don't have the budget, or they're not available. I want something different. Can you help me put my parts list together? No, it takes way too much time and I'm way too busy. But we have one person in a community of over 360,000 people. We have one person who's a little off her rocker because she will help you, a complete stranger, put a computer together and ask you, what do you need this computer to do? What country do you live in? And what's your budget? And then she will do all that research for you and tell you what parts are available in your country, in your currency. And she does all the research that all the parts work together and will fit together. And you know what she charges for it? Nothing. I mean, it'd be nice if people said thank you, and they often do. Sometimes we get somebody who's like, I emailed her and it took her 3 days to respond. You're lucky if she responds at all. She's not obligated to help you. So please be kind to her. And I thought for sure by now she'd be sick of it. She loves it. So there's something not right. But there she is in the chat. You can talk to Catherine. She's in blue. She's in the chat right now. And if you have a question of how you can reach her to talk to her about a build or an upgrade, she would love nothing more than to talk to you, if you're kind. And why wouldn't you be? Chris's Channel of Technology contributes $1. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for supporting the show. And let's see, Selden Bell is in the chat room. Selden's the one that's provided the animated GIF that's moving around on the cooler inside of this computer. Planet Cryos with a very generous $100 contribution. Says, I gotta do the same and help the man who helped me start my PC building. Here you go, my friend. I'll tell you what, I've been in such a hurry, Planet Cryos, that after I was done building your computer, when I mean done, I mean all the cable management was done and the panels were on it, I couldn't believe how good it looked. I was like, wow, this is a really good looking computer. Nobody would know it's actually a piece of crap case. It's like, I think you'll be impressed with it. I was. When I looked at it all put together and all the cable management's beautiful on it, you would never know that it's made out of crappy materials. You would never know that it's very finicky over what hardware can be installed and how it has to be installed and how difficult it is to work on. But once all that's behind you and you have the finished product, it's like a hot dog. You don't want to see how it's made. And I was fascinated by that because it reminds me of that tube computer I did last week. The tube computer really looks cool. You wouldn't know it's actually just a piece of crap. And it's not that the hardware is bad. The motherboard and the CPU and all that's good. But the case itself, the thing you're actually looking at, it's deceitful because it looks pretty damn cool. But if you work on it, it's a nightmare to work on. It's easy to break it. And some of the technology, that they're using on the case is very outdated. Fans with a 4-pin Molex connector, crappy switches to change the RGB that don't seem to have any rhyme or reason. But if you don't know how the hot dog is made, okay, it can look really nice. Yeah, it looks tasty. So I'm going to call Planet Cryos's build the hot dog build. It looks great, it tastes great, but you don't want to know how it's made. Brian Loss, he's contributed another $99.99. He says, let's get this man $1,000 today. Do remember that YouTube is going to take 30% of anything that you contribute versus the PayPal donation link. PayPal only takes 3%. That's a big difference. Also, PayPal sends me a receipt and offers me the opportunity to refund if necessary. YouTube doesn't do any of those things, and YouTube won't give me the money for 30 to 60 days. PayPal gives me the money immediately. So if you want more of your contribution to go to me, please use PayPal. On the other hand, I'm not complaining. I appreciate all your contributions. When someone's contributing $5, $10, $20, and YouTube wants to take 30%, who cares? But when someone's contributing $100 or more, that 30% is $30 of $100. So I'm only getting 2/3 of what you sent, a little bit more than 2/3. So if you want more money to come to me, do that. But the unfortunate side is I don't know that you've sent your PayPal contribution. It's more of a private thing where I check email and I respond and say thank you. So if you want the public acknowledgement, any way that you contribute is always appreciated, but I just want you to know that about YouTube. Armando Garcia contributes $5. He says, you already do so much, Carey. I went from a personal trainer, health instructor, to a PC technician because of you and this channel, and would have been lost when COVID hit. Oh, and all the gyms were closed. Yeah. I remember your story. Yeah, that's very cool. I love to hear that. See, your story is worth more than your financial contribution. That right there is why I do what I do. The financial contributions make it possible for me to do more, make it possible for me to have better cameras, better microphones, better lighting, and make it possible for me to build higher end systems and do these giveaways, both for channel content and to help out those who help me. Again, it's because of your generosity that I can be generous. I can't thank you enough for it. We have a very amazing community here. Catherine says, Carey, your hot dog analogy is similar with chicken nuggets. What, are you telling me chickens don't have nuggets? Well, they taste delicious. It's not always true. I make my own chicken nuggets. I know exactly what's in them. But if you go to McDonald's, maybe not. But, you know, I buy, I think we have a squirrel moment. I buy chicken tenders, you know, strips of chicken breast, and then I cut them. And then I make a tempura batter with cornstarch, flour, and egg and some water. And I deep fry that in peanut oil. Oh, so good. It's so good. And I know exactly it's pure 100% chicken breast. It's not chopped and pressed rib meat. But hot dogs, as far as I know, hot dog's a hot dog. Even if it's kosher, it's still parts mashed together and seasoned. Still delicious. Brad Revel says, Carey, thank you so much for what you do. Well, thanks for being a part of it, Brad. Thank you. Any other technical questions for me? Bosha Bolchik says, I like popcorn chicken. It's all breading, isn't it? There's very little chicken in popcorn chicken. It's all just breading. T&B Family Video says, because of your content, I found good parts for my high-end PC, like the Samsung Evo. Right on, nice. Michael Dane says, that was a screwy squirrel moment. Catherine says, yes, when you make them yourself, it's all good. You should try them sometime. You might lose a finger if you try and take mine, though. Just saying. Everything else we've got left over, all these screws and the case documentation, I want to put that in the motherboard box. We've got the box for the CPU is in here. These are the parts for the cooler if we were to move it to an AMD system. SATA cables we're not using. This is the antenna for the Wi-Fi. This is the blister maker screwdriver that Noctua so generously includes with our $80 cooler, which doesn't hold a candle to the actual screwdriver Scythe includes on their $50 cooler. This little bracket, I think, for another M.2, if I'm not mistaken. That's pretty much it. We can shut this off. We're done. So let me go back over to camera input 2 and shut her down. I always have to, when I get 2 monitors, this will change, but when I have 1 monitor, I have a picture in a picture in a picture. So this desktop is about that big. So I have to go full screen, which hides all the other windows. So I can't see you right now. I can't see my camera. I'm assuming I'm in frame. I'm assuming my connection is good. I'm assuming my audio is working. All I see now is the desktop. And now I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Perfect. You see how fast that was? We'll go back over to camera 2. I'm sorry, camera 1. There I am. And we can unplay it. It's out of here. So I'm not going to bore you with the cable management. It's all real simple stuff. But let's do something else because I'm making some progress today and it feels good. I don't want to stop. So let me ask you a question. If you get an 11th gen CPU, can you replace your 10th gen CPU with an 11th gen CPU without changing your motherboard? Brett, the illustrator, contributes $5, says, your channel helped me build my workstation. I'm upgrading it this month. Thanks for all the knowledge and tips, Carey. Well, thank you, Brett. Move this out of the way. And what I'm going to do is I'll keep Steve's stuff together. I'm just going to jam these cables in here. And later tonight, when I'm off camera, I'll turn on some music, I'll get out the zip ties, and I'll put myself in a little Zen moment of cable management. It's the similar cable management, the same case. You guys have seen it a million times. So I won't bore you with that. More importantly, I won't bore myself with it. And I'll take this box and put it right on top of the case. So I have another friend. That's like 3, right? Mitch, Steve, and now my friend Ron. My friend Ron Hillier joining us in Illinois. Not Illinois. There's no noise in Illinois. Wanted to set him up with something a little nicer. So this is a gigabyte, not nicer than Steve's, just pretty damn, maybe it is nicer than, they're pretty similar. Steve's will have more RAM. It doesn't matter, you guys, it's not a competition. But here's a board I prepped. It's a Z490 Aorus Elite AC. This is using a Z490 board with a Core i7 10700, not a 10700K. Right there. But you know what? I think this needs to be its own video. I don't want to combine these two things together. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop this video. I'm going to retitle another new live video, and it's going to be about transferring a 10th gen CPU to an 11th gen. This is a Core i5 11600K versus a Core i7 10700 non-K. What do you think of that? Now, I don't know why anybody in the world would upgrade from a 10th gen to an 11th gen. As far as I'm concerned, you can skip over the 11th gen. I told you that months ago, before the 11th gen came out. I said, don't waste your time. The 12th gen will be out in the fall, and it'll actually be a better, worthwhile chip. The 11th gen is sort of a corporate obligation to shareholders. That being said, if you have an older machine, like if you're running a 5th or 6th or 7th gen or older Intel CPU, and you want to go to the latest and greatest, I think there's a good value in the Core i5 11600K. Mortmont1210 says, I just sent you $100 to your PayPal. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you, Mortmont. It's very generous. I appreciate that very much. I think during this stream, if we include that $100, I should be able to see what the total is that people have contributed today. Oh, it's not going to tell me. Oh, there it is, $764.92. If we add that 100, we're at $864. YouTube, again, takes 30% of that $764. But Steve Bass, your computer has almost been paid for. I think that computer that we just built, at the time that I bought the parts, I think the memory was around $300. The motherboard was around $160. The solid state drive was $250. The case was $60. Power supply is like $60. The Windows 10, I get those, for $40, $60. What am I missing? What am I forgetting? The cooler was $80. And the CPU itself, I think, was around $400 when I bought it. Might have been like $415. So whatever that adds up to, that's about what it cost me. And so the contributions today, Mr. Steve Bass, I think people really like you for some reason. I thought it was just me. So you can thank all these people today in this chat room because they've made this possible. And as much as I would like to take credit for my extreme generosity, it would be wrong for me to do that. So, all right, so let me wrap up this video. Let me prep the next one where we're going to cover this subject matter here. A lot of people think you need to have a Z590 or a 500 series chip series. This is why I need to take a break. A lot of people think you need a 500 series Intel board to run an 11th gen chip. It's not entirely true. And rather than talk about it, let's see what happens if we do it. So Catherine Ann Hauserman says you need a Z590 for 10th and 11th gen CPUs. See, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding here. I'd like to clarify it. This is a 10th gen CPU, right? Right here. It says 10700 right on it. And we know I've built enough 10th generation CPUs. We know I've been using the 400 series boards on 10th gen. The question is, see the 10th gen is a socket 1200. It's a different socket type. Typically, when the socket type is the same, when you go from a 10th generation chip to an 11th generation chip in the same socket, in most cases, the board is going to be compatible, although it may vary by model or manufacturer. If you look back at the socket 1151, most Intel chips that fit that socket work on most boards that offer that socket. There are some exceptions, and we're going to find out today. And I have a little clue for you. If you want to know how this is going to turn out, go pull up the CPU support at Gigabyte's website and see if 11th generation chips are supported on this board, if you want to spoil the surprise. Otherwise, come back and join me. We'll do it live here. Give me about 20 minutes. I'm going to reset the title, reset the thumbnail, and we're going to do this. And then, if it all goes well, it'll get put into a case similar to Steve's, a Corsair 200R with a power supply. I'll get it cabled up, we'll fire it up, and then that one can go off to Ron next week. How cool would that be? I can get 2 computers out of here next week. I would like that because I am starting to get buried in them. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for all your contributions. I hope you will come back in about, like I said, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Who knows, maybe I can move quicker. I hope you will come back because we've got about 510 people watching. It'd be great if 500 plus people came back. It's always a chance I take when I end the stream and I start another one. But I do need a quick break. I need to catch my breath. I'm a little excited here, and I need to cool down. I'm sweating, and I want to separate these 2 videos from each other. Okay, so for everybody who's contributed, again, my thank you. I don't have the list for some reason. YouTube's not giving it to me, but for all of those generous contributions, thank you guys so much. Mort Mott, Tony Wallow, Planet Cryos, Lugrinia, everybody. I need that list. I can't I can't see everybody's name. I hate that. Don't take it personally that I have a terrible memory, please. But thank you so much. I'll be back here, like I said, 20 minutes. I'll see you all very, very soon. Thanks for joining me. I hope you'll come back. Otherwise, we'll start without you. See you soon.